15 people?
Oh, I'm not looking at it.
Oh, let's see. Because it doesn't. Comments.
3, 4, 7, 15, 20.
Yeah. Oh, here they are. Hi, everybody. Welcome from the writer's cabin. Myself here with Rye, Holly off to the side, playing on her phone. I don't know what she's up to over there.
Cabin business.
Cabin business, apparently. We have guests. And I will say that the Edmonton game for those Canadians is 3-2 at this point with 4 minutes to go. So I'm telling you how dedicated I am. I'm sitting here with 4 minutes to go with the Edmonton playing. And I just want to give props up to my dog, Georgie, today, because Georgie got a haircut. So maybe at the end of the show, the broadcast will give you a little Georgie update. Yeah, let's see. Just checking in. Let's see. A couple minutes or so this. New York State checking in. Love you guys up in New York. Austin, Texas. I was there for South by Southwest last year, where our film won the audience award for short docs, which was pretty cool. From Indy, I got my my second to last pair of hockey skates in Indianapolis a while back. There you go. Baltimore. Hey, Baltimore, Janelle. Let's see. Russo, Minnesota. I have the love-hate relationship with Minnesota because you got a great hockey team going right now. Hi, Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby. Gonna love Sidney Crosby. Everything here today is about hockey. Really, we've been watching hockey all day. North Carolina. I lived down there for a while. North Carolina.
Seattle over here.
Seattle.
Stick.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, I want to pull up that picture if I can find it. I'll do that at the end. We have one of our folks who follows us, who was at one of the No Kings rallies today. We actually literally made a poster up with our name on it. It was really cool, which we thought was really, had both my Substack and Rye's Substack on there and pictures of the cabin, not our cabin, but you get the feeling. It was pretty cool, actually. The fact that they made it for us, it's like, makes us feel like, we're rock stars. You guys are rock stars. Placerville, California. Lived out there for, not in Placerville, but Santa Monica. NYC, Amy Weiss. Hey, Amy, how you doing? I was in Brooklyn for 15 years. Hartford, Connecticut used to have a great hockey team. What a shame we moved. All right, so we're guys going to talk to you a little bit today. Happy Saturday, by the way. About we promised you the Epstein Island photos today, which we've curated about close to 4,000 pictures that we've sort of curated down to less than about 190 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And we just want to kind of go through them like we did the other day with the Epstein mansion in New York City. So, and then we'll give you a little thing at the end. I want you guys to understand that Rye has put together some really cool stuff for his epstein-data.com page. He's I don't know if he's posted them yet, but he's getting ready to start posting them. Right.
Yeah, just some little walkthroughs, very short videos, just 60 seconds to show you some use cases of the website. The example paths that you could take as a user going through searching different things about the files or trying to surface documents in your own investigations.
What did you call them? Use what?
Like a use case.
A use case. He talks in nerd. It's a special language that he has.
They call it user stories.
Yeah. He just made some videos that shows you how to use his website. See, that's how you do it when you're writing clear and concise. Okay, so we're going to let you guys see. We're not going to let you see him here, but we're going to point you to him at the end when he gets them online. Are you getting them online? You're getting them online today. I know you've done a number.
Yeah, I hope to. I have to check a few things with the video resolution. I'm not used to creating things to go out in the social media ecosystem.
It's really good though. They're like short, concise, and they show you how to walk through his site, to use his site in the best possible way, whether you're just a member of the public or somebody who's a researcher or a journalist want to use them. So that's really important. I want to get that up the top because sometimes you guys tail off a little bit at the beginning. We don't like that. Vancouver, Canada. Hey, Jules, my brother lives up there. Go to what's that bar? He plays every Sunday at some bar. Plays a lot of rock. You remember what Chris Newton? Look up Chris Newton on Facebook and start following him. He's out in Vancouver. Plays at a couple different bars under the Chris Newton. It's the Newton family tree where Newton family thing where you can't have something unless your name's in it. I feel like we're the version of Donald Trump, and my brother has his band, the Chris Newton band. You should go watch it. Okay, here we go. So let's look at some of these things. I'm going to start with just like we did the last time, where we showed you just this is the FBI, right? The FBI, they label everything so they can use it as evidence. So these are all evidentiary pictures of Little St. John, otherwise known as the Epstein Island.
James.
Little St. James, sorry. Little St. John. Little St. James, otherwise known as Epstein Island. And we'll just start going through those. Let's see.
It'll be on this down here.
Yeah. Oh, wrong keyboard. Here we go. There you go. So if you own an island and you have lots of building space and lots of cabanas, this is, probably what it's going to look like on the outside. Palm trees, beautiful stonework, amazing trees, views all over the island. Basically there was a video where Epstein's on his own island and he's talking about how this is my pool, because I guess he thinks he owns the ocean as well. This is my pool. Just to give you a sense of what it looks like. Again, it's a big island. This is just one building, set of buildings, all carefully groomed. The one thing we'll tell you is, as you're looking through these pictures, the interesting thing is that it seems like actually Ryan knows more about this than I do, so I'm gonna let him speak to this real fast. But Ryan, what we notice when we're looking at these pictures, evidentiary pictures, is there's not a lot of necessarily, the scene is like it's been cleaned up a lot, right? They had time.
I've noticed that, yeah. Well, and there are reports that there was a significant gap in time between when they were aware it was going to be searched and the time it was searched. But yeah, if you just look at these photos, you notice there's no dishes left out anywhere. There's no evidence, not even in the sort of house, the housemaid's quarters.
Even the chairs and stuff, all the lounge chairs and everything are put away that you would normally see out by the pool. I mean, they really cleaned the place up. Wonder why. Nice pool. Do some laps in that pool. Looks all very sort of, a little Club Med-y without the furniture. But do you remember what this island went for when they eventually sold it?
Was that 65 million? Is that
No, that was the original. That was the house. We're gonna look it up for you real quick so we give you a little sense of perspective. Robert in Las Vegas. Hey, place a bet for me today, Robert. So what are they going to do with the island? It's been sold to a private person, and apparently people they head on over to the island sometimes by jet ski to take a peek, and like one would when you want to see an island used to abuse young children. They go on jet skis and take a look at things. Just we found kind of weird, but those influencers nowadays, they want to get the video of them being on Epstein Island.
Someone's asking if he built this house or bought it, Epstein originally.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I do not know the answer to that at all. I imagine it's out there. He did. We can't tell you he's done a lot of building on this island. I mean, you'll see at the end of this set of photos, they had their own construction crews there. They had every kind of excavation equipment you could ever possibly want to have. Just bizarre, the amount of excavation equipment. As a guy who just built sort of a tiny resort with 10 cabins on it, they had more gear for excavating on that island permanently there than we had for our whole excavation crews up here. You see here that, this again, they seem to have this obsession with when everything else is decorated very poorly, they always have nice kitchens.
So it looks like it was 60 billion, but he got the other island in it as well.
60 million.
Yeah.
60 million plus you got the other island.
Yeah, he had two islands.
Two islands, because one can't be a billionaire with just one island. I mean, it's not it's not David Ellison money, but pretty good amount of money.
Yeah, he owned Great St. James nearby as well. It's 160 acres, but this one that we're showing you primarily is the 70-acre Little St. James.
Yeah, it's only 70 acres. I mean, if you think about it, I've got more land here than he had, so I should be a billionaire. Now you're starting to get into this is literally the breakfast nook in one of the kitchens. It's art, I guess, and what you see sort of blackened out is a baby in a sink surrounded by floating potatoes. Probably coming in from the mic from the outside there. But yes, a baby in a sink with floating potatoes. And I don't know why they consider this person a victim, this child a victim. More probably just to protect the identity of the child. You got some outdoor seating outside of that space with big marble tables. You know. And then you start seeing some of the inside pictures. This was an unfinished room, at least as we can tell. It was either unfinished or they stripped it. It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's the only thing sort of out of order here. There's a few other things seem to be sort of pulled up. There's things that were under construction, but there's no real signs of life.
Yeah. It's a good question from Leah Gagnon, who I imagine, Leah, with a name like Gagnon, are you from Quebec, Leah? Let us know. She said, who would want to live there is the person, corporation who bought it, hoping to keep skeletons hidden. We had some information on the person who bought it. We're going to give it to you. Just back from No Kings in Austin, Texas. Valerie, thanks for joining us. This is another room. This is the same room, actually, with bookshelves. There's no books or anything on it at this point.
And so Stephen Deckoff bought it. 57, founder of private equity firm Black Diamond Capital Management. It's from stthomassource.com.
Yep. Anyway, thing back.
There you go.
And you see the other room. I always thought this was a little odd, sort of a Caribbean king and queen sort of crown, it looks like. And if the next picture shows it sits, oh, that picture's not there. Yeah. There was like some chairs in there that faced the king and queen crowns. Here you're off into another room. Looks like a cabana type setup.
Yeah. Again, the chairs have been sort of stored, that's put away to maximize space, make it easy to move things, look through things. More of this, it's very much not lived in, what we see.
Mm. And then you see over here it's hard to see whether it's computer equipment or audio video equipment. And you see the painting on the far wall. It looks like a child on their knees, bowing their head on some steps. Sort of avant-garde sort of stuff. I mean, the one thing I would say about this place is it's decorated a little bit better than his place in New York, which you guys saw our podcast on that, which just looked weird. And who can't love a view like that? You'll see a lot of these buildings around here. All these buildings are kind of in a square, and they're just little cabanas off of them, which are, seems much more sort of accessible and easy to go in and out of than the ones you see in New York, where the apartments are kind of all over the 5 or 6 floors. There's another view. I guess the person who bought this place didn't care that it was so creepy because they had that view, but it would definitely creep me out. Leah, she's from Toronto. Father was last Quebecer in the family. Well, that explains the Gagnon. And he loved the Boston Bruins. I'm sorry to hear that. You're probably a Toronto fan. I'm going to try to like you anyways. Let's see. There's some other pictures. Now, actually, in the files, originally, I think they sent the DOJ sent this picture without any of these victims covered. It's actually a painting, but
sure. There's a few. It's it was inconsistent. I believe this one we extracted straight out of the files. We may have taken a screenshot for this one. Regardless, now it should be properly redacted. But this one was done inconsistently in the first batch.
Yeah, if you kind of were able to zoom in or look at it later, you'll definitely be able to look at this stuff later. Somebody's asking. It's going to probably go out to everybody. So you'll be able to look at this later and slow down and look at these pictures. You can actually hit the space bar and stop when you have it on your own feed, just to answer that question.
Were these taken after his arrest?
These were taken in
Yeah, certainly. Which after the second arrest.
Yeah, after the second arrest. So we can try to give you a date on it real quick. Kind of slows us down a little bit.
8/12/19.
Yeah, so 8/12/19, and he was definitely, that was right around his arrest date actually. He was arrested in August, wasn't he?
Yeah, the death date was August 10th. So it was
we're doing
August 10th, 2019.
Yeah.
So it's 2 days after his death.
hmm So actually, what you see in that picture there, if I get my cursor back, what you see in that picture are girls, I guess, floating on in the water with like those floaties. And there you see sort of a bathroom in one of the cabanas with a chair, just sort of, this again, looks nicer than the other ones. Just a regular shower with marble. Here's the outdoors again. And those are little cabanas right there. Here's the inside of one of them. See the roofs match what you just saw prior. Sort of small little rooms with, and this one struck me because what you see on the desk is just like, um, you know, colored pencils, set of colored pencils. Somebody obviously like to sketch, colored pencils, kind of like it's kind of thing you'd see like a young person do, right? Unless I guess they're artists who loves to make colored pencil sketches. But it seems to me like something youthful, all right, something young. I don't want to read too much into it, except I'm reading too much into it. And there's sort of some garments left behind, little nighties and stuff. Another cabana made for maximum airflow. A little kitchen. A lot of kitchens on this property. Here's some. This is either every time we come across something like this, Ryan and I kind of laugh about it because it has a tendency to be.
Was like, look who was doing that wiring.
Who's doing
I mean,
it?
what kind of duress was that wired together underneath?
Yeah. And we don't know. That might have been audio visual equipment with cameras and stuff, or it might have been just an audio system, right? It was hard to say just based on that picture. We'll just go through a few more. All right, now here you see they have a laundry room for the whole island. It's like a laundromat that you would see in any town you go through. There's like so much that they have. I mean, very well organized and folding tables and works. And then here's the one we talked about this in our the other day. Actually, if you guys were to see close up of this, I think Rye's going to make it closer for you. If you look down this list and look at the top first, Rye. So the top of this list will tell you this is basically an employee list of everybody who's works on the island, and you have all their names there. There's a lot of evidence, right? Like all these people should be deposed, all of them, because at certain stages, all of them saw things. But we always like to hone in on the housekeepers because there's, housekeepers see a lot more than say a landscaper or a irrigation guy, right? So in this case, you can see, Rye's going to show you down there. You can see the person who's blacked out. If you look across from that person, they're a housekeeper, and if the housekeeper was the victim, I certainly understand them being blackened out 100%. However, if you're trying to obstruct evidence by making sure nobody knows what happened in that area, and the housekeeper is going to have eyes on everything that happened there, you would blacken them out. And so, me, it's just skepticism. Journalistically, it screams at me as like, who the fuck is behind that black thing? And we actually, if we looked at this, we noticed that it was categorized. Yeah, it looked like it was done in alphabetical order by first name.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can surmise that person has a first name that begins with S.
Right.
So it's probably not that too hard for some of these files might actually find if we cross-reference it. Or did we try to do that? I can't remember.
I think I did early on, but I couldn't find anything. Now that I know more about where things are in the files, it might be easier. But just off the top of my head, it's not Sarah Kellen because Sheridan is above that. So it might not be the usual suspects, or maybe DOJ really, managed to properly redact this thoroughly for this one.
Yeah. So I just, at least Leah Gagnon, just to follow through on the hockey stuff, I appreciate what you're saying. I understand where your father's loyalty lies now. But there's no excuse for not loving Montreal more than Boston. Okay, so now we'll go back so we can scan through here. By the way, those of you who were watching the Edmonton game, Edmonton won 4-2. Go Oilers. So there you see sort of some outside areas where you can walk around the compound. Just pretty normal stuff. Again, more outside pictures and more views. These are all different pictures. And when they're going around the compound, I imagine they're doing it sort of chronologically. They're walking, and wherever they go, they take exteriors first, the view, which gives you orientation, and then you would take a picture of the building, which would give you the outside of the building and maybe even a marker on that building, and then they would go inside and take pictures.
But can you imagine? I mean, being subjected to that abuse, being, sort of preyed upon based on your family situation, and then ending up here, looking out at that absolute paradise and knowing you're just sort of trapped.
Yeah, and you're on you're not an island, so good luck complaining about something and saying I want to leave. Sounds kind of yeah, and things can go on an island that can't go on in a town that has police force close by, and just something to think about. I don't want to make too much of it, but like it definitely, you made a really interesting point, Rye. So now we're going to go back here and then keep on scanning through. Oh, I will say this, like this is, this wasn't just something he, just picked up. I mean, you see E for Epstein on all the on that patio, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff around there. He's custom masonry, right? Yeah, very expensive custom masonry. And then you get a sense of scale here, which is why we included this. I mean, just outside of one part of one building, you see all the other buildings surrounding it. And it's kind of like that all over the island. Well kept landscape work. Everything is just tip top shape. There's looks like a statue at the top of this stairwell. Here's the inside of another room. It's kind of a little bit, looks like it's been cleaned up, but not perfectly. This looks like a master bedroom of some sort. And then you see like that picture on the left. You want to that actually, Rye and I were debating that a little bit. Rye, says it looks like a man's hand and a girl's hand, and I just have a tendency to think it probably just a man and a woman.
It's hard to tell. Very small hand.
Hard to tell. That's a better picture of it, but obviously this is again when an FBI photographer doesn't know how to use his camera. Instead of bouncing it off the roof, he flashes directly. But what do I know? I'm only a filmmaker. This is this is a closet. I have a tendency to think, I think this is Epstein's closet, actually, if I remember from the other pictures that we saw that went with it. And he's got a lot of jeans here. Dude loves
I think that might be Ghislaine's Crocs on the bottom.
Yeah, but
I don't know. There's the pink shoelaces. I think it's her.
Maybe you might be right there.
Maybe a housekeeper. Look, there's 2 identical copies of these pairs of Crocs, so it could just be like the housekeeper's small.
But I remember in the main house in New York, there was a closet with like 7 pairs of identical Crocs like this. It's like whoever does that, they're very regimented, very, very regimented. I don't know what that beep was.
That's one of my devices.
There you see like same shirts, the same shirts and pants and same jeans. Right. This is interesting. You want to take this one?
I think, is it dental equipment? It's certainly medical equipment of some kind. Is that an oxygen machine in the middle there?
They definitely had a dentist's office there, but I don't think that's this. I think this is more medical stuff that's not dental in nature. Any of you doctors in there or nurses or healthcare professionals, you might want to throw up there what you think this is. It's not listed on anything, so we don't know. We're just speculating. Just a bathroom, again, typical Epstein. Oftentimes, if it's one that either he or Ghislaine are using, obviously it has a phone in it. And then here's this is very grotto-like. Those are actually chairs. I'll show you a better picture of them in a minute. We took another one, but you see in the background there's a shower, and it's definitely not a shower for 1 or 2. It's a shower for like a whole group of people who are hanging out. and a tub. And there's those chairs kind of, but you see it's all been cleaned up. The whole place has been cleaned of any sort of evidence. Yeah, so there you have it. I mean, it's kind of arranged like a steam room. So that's maybe what it is.
Used as storage right there.
Yeah. I think you see the shower head on the top up there, but probably a steam room. And there's some access to other cabanas going through with the view of what Epstein calls his pool. Oxygenator. Okay. Respiratory. There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roseanne. Tan machine looked like an oxygen generator. Okay. Like
that one in the middle one. My mom had one like that.
Yeah. By the way, this gives us a point to actually talk about something important here. I'm just going to sidestep it for a second. You guys are finding stuff in here that we don't know because I'm not a doctor. If you threw an AK-47 and M4 on the ground in front of me, I could tell you what weapon they were and how they're used, but I'm not a medical guy. And so you guys are actually seeing stuff that helps enlighten us in ways. There was something that somebody did the other day, right? You remember that? Who sent you something?
God, yeah. What was that?
And it was actually very fascinating.
There's a couple of them. There's a few tipsters out there that I've been following up with on some cool threads.
And they're actually sending stuff to him now because they're seeing stuff that we're putting out there and they're seeing it. Oh, he actually utilized your site for something, epstein-data.com.
Mm-hmm.
And he took something from that and advanced the understanding of that data.
Oh, okay. That one. Yeah. He's, I don't necessarily think we want to talk about it quite yet until we get the files back, but he's obtaining some government records, state records, so that we can investigate, the death of someone a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So
cleanly.
he saw something that we talked about and saw something on his site and decided he was going to investigate himself and file for some information. We'll just leave it at that for now. But that's what's kind of happening with the stuff we're doing. You know, here we are a month and a half in for Rye, and I'm like a couple weeks into this thing and I don't know anything about it. And we're just exploring and figuring out the best ways to advance things. And people are actually seeing stuff that we see, and they're actually telling us what it is. What happens when a hive of people get together and start sharing information? You know, it's really useful to us just having you guys on here. One looks like a suction machine. Look at that. You know, medical field, but my husband used one for a while. Okay. So I'm going to go back to these pictures and continue to go through them here. And you see the statues out there, very sort of elaborate statue, and then some sort of weird, looks like African art on the wall with a really elaborate sort of frame around it. Pretty amazing. And there's one of the sort of grand rooms painted with the ceiling to represent the sky. It's actually, again, it's better decorated than much better, except here. Like, you know, you've got this really amazing room, and then with all this library effect, and you've got this weird table. I guess the table looks like it's for spreading out larger books and maps on it to look at. So maybe it's not really as plastic as it looks. It looks like a proper table. Some more art along the wall, sort of a sphere encased in a wooden frame, and more books. And apparently a victim, but honestly, it looks a little bit like Ghislaine, like kind of her stance. We've been seeing so many pictures of her now. We start to think.
Yeah, you get the sense of the body language.
Yeah. And then there's another alleged victim, I guess, because we don't know if this is really a victim or not, but it looks like they're supposed to only blacken out victims. So we have to assume that that's a victim. There's a lot of that. There's another one of Epstein over there with a younger girl, who we think we might know who that is. Remember?
I think there were a few of them.
Ava's daughter.
Possibly.
It might be Ava's daughter.
I
Ava
can't
was
see
the
without.
woman he dated, and he was really close to her younger daughter at one point, saying he wanted to marry her, even though he was her godfather. You've got another victim cover on the left, and then over here you've got Epstein with a very young person on the right, and two more victims with a helicopter picture off to the right, apparently landing on Epstein Island. Okay, and then some more pictures and sculptures. And then this is the dental area,
Infamous.
which is really weird and creepy. We're going to show you why. We don't know necessarily who everybody is, but there's a couple of pictures in here. One of them looks like it's Hitler. Like that guy on the wall straight in front of you. You see that guy? Doesn't that look like Hitler? I mean, some weird stuff. And all these pictures, when you look at them, I don't know if they're like former world leaders or something, or I have no idea. But the one we saw in front of you definitely looks like Adolf Hitler. Either way, when you're getting your teeth done or something done to your teeth and laying in that chair, looking around at a bunch of creepy old men is so it just makes you wonder.
Yeah.
And they did have sort of dental facility there, right? And that's a weird one. They had a dental facility there, and they also had an ambulance on the property. So exterior room actually off of the dental place. Another one of those pictures from the outside. Excuse me, sculptures from the outside. All right, here's a room with a lot of evidence. I'm thinking, it looks like a room where your security people might be. You've got binoculars and you've got radios. So if somebody's coming to and from the island, you might want to see who they are and report to people. So you've got phones in there, laptops, all the radios that probably were security staff that would walk around on the island. And then you've got, the FBI hand in there taking pictures of the island, which we pulled a few of. Now here's one that's a tad creepy. You've got police uniforms and security uniforms.
City of New York.
City of New York police uniforms.
There's a lot of that sort of
yeah.
Special police.
Yeah. Sort of
something.
Yeah, dress up. Little dress up things. Right. Which they were very careful to photograph. Now here you've got some young girl's seems to be her sort of pictorial diary. Once upon a time, there was a clueless little girl. Very telling.
There are other diaries scanned into the files that are of this format, and some of them contain some of the more disturbing descriptions of abuse in all of the files.
Yeah, if you remember, I was telling us about that when he first started looking at the files. He was going through a lot of the testimony, of witness statements and interviews, and he was coming across a lot of the stuff, but also reading some of these things in their personal diaries. A lot of these young girls kept personal diaries. They're very childlike.
They may have been trauma journals, I've since learned, that are designed to help people cope with things that have happened to them, but it's unclear exactly the provenance of all of the files. It was not this particular one. The background was a different color. But there are a few like this that you see throughout.
Yeah. Oops, a daisy. Okay. And there's some more absolutely as evidence, right? There's just a ton of pictures and I think it looks like DVDs in there and more pictures. You could see a lot of the pictures. The one thing, Ryan, I've noticed in a lot of the pictures that they take of these girls is sometimes they take them as sort of snapshots, but sometimes they take a lot of pictures of them just sort of in a casual setting. They're just documenting every single girl who went through here. Like you see here, more pictures of that. This is a great example. Like it doesn't look like a picture you would take if you were trying to have a memento. It looks like a picture you would take to register that somebody's there. Right? Here's a great example: an entrance to an area where there's girls off to the side. If you were trying to sneak pictures of people, it might be how you would do it. Wonder if they're impersonating police more and more, all as possible. To me, it seems like they're playing dress up. They've got a lot of uniforms like that, like they're playing dress up all over the compound. More evidence. This is, it's Jeffrey Epstein personal pictures of girls, party pictures, negatives. Here's a picture of a young girl, a letter from a young girl, very much written like it's a young girl who wrote it, but I'll let you guys go over that. more on your own. There's this hard reality that we're looking at, which is that, Jeffrey Epstein gave a lot of these young girls who had, many of which had nothing when they first came to him. They gave them access to things that they'd never seen or done in their life. And they obviously were asked to write notes to these people of thank you. They write birthday messages to them. They write thank you notes to them for allowing them to go certain places around the world, and meet a lot of different people. And they come back and write letters to them, which in many people's regards who look at this and maybe take a firmer stand on some of these young girls, is that they were doing everything voluntarily. That's the, what's her name?
That would be the argument, but there's so much more. They made them dependent on them. I mean, they really preyed upon these girls for their circumstance. And it's hard to say. We don't know exactly who wrote this letter, what's blacked out. But the handwriting's very nice, I can say.
Yeah. But even the way they drew little pictures, it's very childlike, right? All right, here's, you've got Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and some young person in between them while they're all rollerblading together. Another entry of a young girl.
Thank you letter for going on a safari, sort of whole thank you journal.
Yeah. Wrote him a thank you journal for allowing her to go on safari, and pictures of her throughout. Identifiable characteristics in it, obviously. This is all evidence, right? More of that journal. All this stuff is in the pictures from that evidence from that. If you wanted to look at it, you could go on epstein-data.com and go through the pictures from this particular evidence that they've gathered, and read through these journals if you wanted to see more of that. Yeah, and you say if the walls could talk, you're right. The walls actually are talking through these journals, right? These girls are thinking, going through. This is, if I remember correctly, it's kind of far away from me, but this was a young girl wanting to make sure that she wrote the appropriate letter to Jeffrey. So she actually asked if the letter she wrote was the best letter she should, or should she rewrite it. So obviously shows a lot of control with Ghislaine Maxwell, where she's, literally seeing what they're writing before it gets handed over to them. And it looks like did they not? Yeah, I'm going to go past this now, but it looks like the bottom of that note, they didn't remove her name.
Well, it may not be deemed to be a victim. It may be somebody in the orbit, a witness.
Could be.
They may have neglected to convert the handwriting into text.
Yeah. Here you see more victim pictures, like, they're everywhere. Right. And obviously you can just tell by the stature of some of the frames of these girls, are very young. And then you've got this, basically this birthday print for Jeffrey that they made, and then the girl's handwriting on the back, in black magic marker. It definitely looks like something done by a young, very young woman, right? Or girl. And there you've seen pictures of him in his sort of Navy uniform, walking around, goofing around. That's another one of his uniform pictures. And the Israeli Defense Forces t-shirt that he has, close up of that was in his room. And then of course you've got, the whole place has sex toys everywhere, because why wouldn't it? You're on a tropical island, right? And then this is what, Ryan, I'll let you talk about this, because
I don't know exactly. I mean, what kind of weird chalkboards are for equations? I don't know why you need to have this.
Yeah, I'll put it back up there while Ryan talks about it, but yeah, just read for those people who can't see it, because maybe they're on the phone.
Power, deception, plants, music, time, distribution, I think this says under here. Very politics, just weird underlined of major elements in how our world works. it's not like talking about anything as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe they're just writing the name on a chalkboard to sound official. I had some teachers like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just want to know what the conversation was that created this writing. Was it somebody just writing to themselves, or was it Ghislaine writing to Jeffrey, or Jeffrey writing to Ghislaine? I'm sure it's something more interesting than I can think of, but it's just weird, right? Power, deception, just a weird thing. Here's another larger room. Looks like a little area with like a sitting area and a bar and a kitchen in the background, with a print of 3 women with their back to you. It's an outdoor sitting area. Yeah, this is the world of an insane person, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of little walkways to little quiet secret areas and places where you would eat, brunch or breakfast, those kinds of places. There you go.
Would have been evidence.
Would have been evidence of something, right? A shredder. Because when you just have a regular island with all your friends hanging out, you need a shredder.
It's fair. It's like 2/3 full.
Yeah. And then this is one weird one. Is on a side table in one of these side rooms, and it says his safe of evil. Somebody had gone through his safe for evidence and found a bunch of items. And the New York Post, somebody had flown down from New York with this in their luggage, I guess, and have it in the very house where it's happening, which to me is really fucking strange. And you just see the infrastructure here. Everybody, they had enough people to have tons of these vehicles all around the property so they could get around. The property is big enough for it. Look at the amount of gear you have for jet skiing and skiing and things like that, right? You see all the chairs in the background that would have been around the pool are all put away.
It's probably a print of the Mona Lisa in their storage area.
Right. They have this big print of the Mona Lisa in the storage area
with a pool or something. They have their pool shed. This is sort of the rich person version of that, with all the chemicals and the yard equipment down here. Imagine putting your print for the Mona Lisa up above the door, not even stashed somewhere, but actually framed and put up there. Yeah.
Who would have said, like, I know a great place for this Mona Lisa print. Why don't you put it in the pool shed above the door? That's a great idea, Elaine. That's wonderful. Why did not have you decorate the New York apartments?
More wires that looked like they were threaded together at gunpoint.
Yeah, this is probably some of the surveillance stuff. Here's another picture of him with a young girl on a couch. A young girl in her bedclothes and a flannel shirt on her knees. A whole table full of young women with their faces blackened out, in black and white. More of the same.
Yeah, I see somebody mentioned he also did have living quarters in Paris. It was an apartment.
Yeah, that's the other thing we'll talk to you a little bit about. We'll just take a break from this. He had two other main places that he stayed. One was in Paris, which you could see in his trust in the documents that have been released by the Epstein estate as evidence in the Epstein files from DOJ files that you can actually walk through and find if you wanted to, if you're on Rise site, epstein-data.com, and you can find that. But there's no photographic evidence of the Paris apartment that are in the files that we've come across.
There's a little bit. So I think isn't there the front entrance of it you can see, but yeah, no evidence of searching it.
Yeah.
And of course, infamously, no evidence of searching Zorro Ranch, which didn't occur.
That's right. Even though they had access to it, and the federal government asked them to turn over all the evidence that the state had collected in New Mexico, and they gladly did that, expecting subpoenas and everything to happen, and then suddenly nothing. So, and that property's been bought as well by, you guys can do the reading on that by, I think Welland Republican actually. So yeah. So more victims. Yeah, I'm sure the Paris government actually will be investigating this if they're not already. Europe seems to be all over the story. And there's another picture of him, another victim. Now here's where it gets interesting. Again, we know that he was videotaping a lot of these young girls, and there's thousands of files of sex tapes and so forth, excuse me, that the government has not will not release because obviously it's pornographic in nature and it's evidence of sex crimes against young girls. But this is where you see these are 2 terabyte hard drives. That's a lot of evidence, and here it's all collected, right? All the stuff going through the audiovisual stuff, more hard drives.
Yeah, those are, I think, 2 terabyte hard drives. That's 12 terabytes. I mean, even
Just sitting right there.
even if you're not doing very good compression on your surveillance tapes, that's quite a lot of disk space for you.
Yeah. Here's some of the pictures of some of these are pictures of what they wanted to build and did build, and some are just drawings, and some are actually blueprint type prints.
Topographic map.
This is a topographic map of. There's a lot of these actually. We only put in a few because we don't want to keep you here all night. Literally, there's thousands we went through so you guys could see 200 pictures. We spent
So for example, you can see the number on the far bottom that we're at 2644. We got up to just shy of 4,000, and these are one by one.
Yeah, so we have to go through them one by one and look at them and see what might be interesting to you guys. And then here's some more plans for the state. There's the topo photograph, or excuse me, representation of the island. And here's sort of the layout of what you've seen in pictures already with the cabanas and the buildings around throughout.
This be what was drawn with those sketch pencils. Is this the architect?
Now you get to see how much work went into this place that was done by people. Like, look at this, like all the equipment here, these excavators. This is not cheap stuff. I can tell you as a guy who paid a lot of rental for these for these things over the last summer. Here's an outdoor space. Somebody's asking if we need help categorizing photos.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Doing my best to sort of sort and categorize things with AI. Different vision models have sort of captions written on the website for, I think, about 90,000 of them. You go on there, and that'll be explained in one of those short videos we talked about coming up.
Right. These are some of the outdoor spaces that were, outdoor kitchens with bars, seating areas, quite beautifully put together. It looks pretty new, actually. Probably done within the last couple of years. Really nice curated spaces there for parties and such, with pillows all over the floor and everything. Trees, woven into the architecture of the building itself with an incredible view of the bay. I mean, this is a guy who knew how to spend money, right? Some more pictures of the pool area. Some more pictures of audio-visual stuff. Another small kitchen. Another large shower area. This is doesn't look like a steam room, it looks like a shower area. Pretty massive. And then this is probably Jeffrey's shower, actually, because it's the same sequence of pictures where you see his clothing. It's like bathing clothing, he's got like shorts and shirts and stuff with his name, his monogram on it. You see the one on the left actually has
JEE.
Yeah, I pull it up for them. So this is his
Jeffrey Epstein Enterprises, I believe it is.
Yeah. This is a weird one of Princess Diana on the wall in one of the rooms. I don't know if it's because he's listed in the article or because he met her or because he's fixated or fascinated on it. I just don't have any idea, but it was just a weird place to see it. Going around the perimeter of the island. Some little gazebo type areas, sitting areas. Picnic table area. This is, I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, so this is the infamous temple, it's called. Very creepy. People have actually since broken in. I think there was like a hurricane or something, and the security force wasn't on there. It evacuated, and these social media influencers got in and took videos of themselves breaking into this thing. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around this building.
There's part of the inside. There's not any really good wide shots of the inside as a whole. You notice these FBI photographers, they're the people who could never get jobs in photojournalism. They take a lot of evidence pictures, but they don't give you a good view of the entirety of the space before they start snapping pictures, the close-ups. And so as a result, you got a lot of stuff like this. This should have been shot with probably a 28 millimeter lens. You've got these little things there. Now this is an area where they just kept a lot of their trucks and stuff. So you see, like, they have, bulldozers and such, and forklifts. That's a forklift. And then you see, big trucks to move dirt. That's kind of a big dump truck.
Ambulance.
Got their own ambulance on the island. More stonework. I'm just imagining, like, the amount of money for that stonework. There's just these fences everywhere. You don't do that very much in many places anymore. It's just too expensive. This was an unfinished space that was, I think, wasn't the workout room?
Yeah, I believe this was the gym. This was under construction.
The gym was under construction, so not much to see here. This is like a little private space that they had listed as sort of like a little cottage on the water.
Yeah.
But when you go inside of it, it's really just...
This is the same building that I think it was a different group of social media influencers rented jet skis and got out to, you can see their video. There are people on here now, the new owners, I suppose, or their employees. So this is again lived in.
Right. Looks like, did you send out a notification of this for the podcast? Okay.
Mhm.
Julie B was saying she didn't see any notification for it and was asking me.
Went to email on Substack, and it was posted on both Facebook.
Yeah. So just Julie B, if you're joining now, the answer is yes. Holly sent it out on Substack and Facebook. Here is the inside of that building. It's just like made into a sort of a secret little office near the water. And there's one of the sort of grotto areas they were building.
The sundial.
This is the sundial. Because, who doesn't have a sundial on the private island?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be very interesting coming in on a helicopter from seeing the sundial. That might be the end of it.
So our last one. I think we ended on the sundial.
We ended on the sundial, peeps. Anyways, that's, what do you get from this when you guys are looking at it? To me, it's just extreme wealth, money. The evidence stuff with the hard drives is something that would be really interesting for us to be able to know what's on those hard drives. And I'm certain that those may never see the light of day. But we know they're evidence. We know they're there, which is really important, which means when they're not released, you can ask for them. You can ask for evidence like that through FOIA, because those would have been converted to digital files, right? And put somewhere for anybody who was investigating these crimes. So, those are the kinds of things that when we're looking at stuff. And I'll just tell you a little bit about, you guys saw that I posted a little 1 minute long thing Ryan and I made the other day showing you that we're filing all these FOIA requests, which is the Freedom of Information Act, which is the federal law that governs information that the government has in its possession that's owned by taxpayers because we possess it. And so this evidence under the Epstein law that allows a release of this information, demands that all the evidence from this case be released, except with the exception of victims' names and victims' faces. And there's 4 or 5 exceptions on there that they can use to try to shield us from the evidence in this case, in which case that's where we're going to have the battles. I think, obviously those are going to be battles for that information. So using the AI tools at our disposal, Rye's like, well, why don't we just find out what the most likely cases that we might be able to FOIA for, that we would have success in gaining them because they wouldn't be able to shield them through the exemptions. That's a fucking very powerful tool. And so we did that. And we came up with, right now, we came up with eight letters that we're writing for FOIA, which are very exhaustive and extensive, but very direct and pointed for evidence that we're looking for that allows us to take a peek inside of this world that is so far being held from us. And we could have just said, well, let's just wait until Congress demands it and gets it all out. Or we could say, no, the law demands this stuff be released. And so we're going to go after it. And so through FOIA, we're filing literally the letters are on the counter right beside Holly next to me. And some of them are behind me, which we've gone over this weekend so that we can file FOIA requests for certain evidence that hasn't been released. And so here's the thing. And a lot of you, I've noticed in your discussion said, well, look, they're just going to bury it. They're not going to let you have it. Okay, so that's possible. I mean, I've been through that many times before as a journalist. Oftentimes the government won't let you have information, but there's 9 exemptions and you fucking have to cite them in a FOIA letter. So if you tell me you're not going to give me something, you have to tell me why. And you can't just go, there's a letter with somebody's name in it. You just can't go, well, that we can't release that letter because that person's name in it. You have to redact the name. So when we're looking for things, we're like, oh, wait, these 9 pages are all black and there's no reason behind it. So we're going to force them to give us a reason for why it's blackened out. In this case, it's financial records that we looked at, right? So we're like, why are these 9 pages blackened out? And so you can go through and ask the FOIA officers who go through this stuff to force an exemption explanation. The other thing is by them telling us we can't have something, you're furthering the information investigation, because now when they're telling us what they have and can't give it to us, then you're opening up for potential appeals. And really good FOIA people, journalists who do this for a living, of which I did my whole career, we appeal everything. There's no harm in appealing. And if they don't respond to you within 20 business days, you can assume it's a no answer. So you can take it straight to appeal, which allows you to go to court and ask a judge to weigh the public's right to know versus the government's right to withhold the information. And the FOIA law is very clear. It says when those 2 cases are even, then what's supposed to happen under FOIA is they're supposed to release the documents to the public because the public's right to know outweighs the government's right to withhold that information in many cases. The only way you get it is by asking and demanding it, and then sometimes going to court and having a judge rule on it. And if a judge rules that it has to be released, it has to be released. If not, okay, we've gone down a road that we don't find out anything, but we may find out something. And we may not get everything. We may get 10% of what we request, but that 10% might be very important information. And when people withhold information from you after a judge says that you can't have it, then it becomes criminal. Then it becomes a cover-up. So you're building a case for a cover-up for lots of people to look into. And our evidence could literally be a part of showing how they're covering something up. We could send our FOIA rejections to Congress and to senators and say, look, they're covering this up. We have evidence of that. So when you guys say, oh, you're never going to get anything, it's not about that. It's about a process you put them through to put pressure on them. And that's what good journalists do. They put pressure on them all the time and don't let up until they get what they want. And, it doesn't mean we're going to get everything. It just means we're not going to accept no for an answer until we get to the very last state in the process. So just so you guys know. So let's take some questions for you guys. We'll probably keep this short. It's Saturday. We're going to maybe take 10 minutes of questions maximum, okay? Because it's Saturday night and I have guests here and there might be a late night hockey game.
I see somebody mentioning Elisa Valdez. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So
Yes.
I think it's under Alyssa Wrights or Lisa Wrights.
Yes. No, actually, that's not. It's not. It's not under that. There's 2 Elisa Wrights, and one of them is not Elisa Valdez. So be careful. Go to Elisa Valdez. It's like at Elisa Valdez. Hold on, we're gonna get it right for you. I posted it on a comment today.
Valdez Rodriguez.
That's right. It's Elisa Valdez Rodriguez, and she's a former Boston Globe and LA Times staff writer. And what does that tell me? The Boston Globe and the LA Times kick ass. They're great newspapers. Traditionally, they've been great newspapers. And so if she was writing for those news publications as a reporter, a staffer for both those places, she's going to be shit hot. Look at her stuff on
She's
Substack.
really good. Yeah.
She's really good. And, you know, I would follow her if you're not following her.
Yeah, the Zorro Ranch stuff. She's going.
She's all over all this.
Incredible deep dive into the communications infrastructure and looking up all the records and, you know, who's managing those licenses with the FCC. Really, really solid work.
And the reason we don't mind telling you about these people, they're basically, in a sense, they're competitors, but this is not competitive. So people need to understand, like, I will talk about good reporting day and night because this is an important story where you need the best reporters all breaking stuff. And these reporters who are doing great work need to be, and somebody said today, oh, you're doing such great work. You guys are the best that I've come across. You're not looking hard enough. You're not looking hard enough. We are not. We're doing a service in a sense in that we're trying to advance the story. And the FOIA work, we hope, will put us in that category. But right now, we're giving you cursory dives on these details that you can find yourself if you wanted to, because we're trying to get people up to speed on this, so we gather more momentum. Because these stories die when people don't follow them. So we're like, okay, let's do what we know we can do without biting off more than we can chew, but still educating people, and that's what we're doing. And so we're like, yes, look at the Julie Browns of the world, the work that the volume of work she's done. Look at the, Elise Valdez Rodriguez. Look at her stuff; it's amazing. Look at who else?
Elise Leonard,
Ellie Leonard's doing fantastic work. So look at their work if you're really interested in the story and deep diving, because they're doing great work. And we're gonna get there, but we're playing catch up on people who've been following the story for years. But we're looking for holes in the reporting. That's what I'll look for, holes in reporting. Somebody taught me a long time ago. There's this guy named Bracelin Flood, and he was a mentor of mine in college. And he wrote books for a living. And I said, what do you write about? He wrote this book called Lee of the Last Years. He wrote Hitler, Path to Power. He wrote stories about Grant, all these Civil War generals. And when I asked him, like, how do you decide what you're going to write about? And I was like 19 at the time. He said, where the stories are is where there's holes in time. And so look for the holes in time. Look for the things that nobody's done and chase those. So that's what we're doing. That's why we've come up with these FOIA requests that are, we don't know if people have done them, but we think that we might be onto something. So we're going to keep pursuing those types of stories until we reach the ultimate conclusion of those stories. And we're also going to provide commentary on some of these great reporters and stuff that they're doing, because you need to be following them. And I appreciate people thinking we're doing fantastic work and going, oh, you're the best that we've seen so far. If you think we're the best that you've seen so far, you're not digging deep enough. Okay. I just say that. Now, when it comes to conflicts and war reporting, I'm your guy. And when it comes to basically computer programming and, those kinds of things,
ask me what you like.
He's your guy, right? But on this story, there are people doing it better, and we need to acknowledge them so that this story continues to gain momentum. Okay. And we just have to be very unselfish about the story, because these women need answers to stuff. So that's just how we have to treat it. Okay. What else? We're all on the same team, Diana. Fucking right we are. Yes. FOIA requests have really been delayed. How many staffers have been laid off by Doge, etc.
Yeah.
So yes, FOIA requests can be delayed. That's right. But the law says you have to answer me within 20 days. And if you don't, I can assume that you're telling me no. So I can take it straight to court. Now, what we'll have to do, so you guys know, that the process of doing that means I got to have lawyers. So I'm going to search for First Amendment lawyers who can help us with these things, that maybe do pro bono work because they think what we're doing is important. And we're going to be on the search for funds to do that, because here's how I'll just walk you through some of the stuff. If I file a FOIA request and it's exhaustive, and they say, okay, we have these documents for you and we have to release them because the law says so, there's 3,000 pages. And the 3,000 pages of this document that you want, we're going to charge you whatever the market rate is. I don't know what it is anymore. It's maybe like $1 a page, maybe. And they're going to say, okay, send us $3,000 and you get this stuff. So what we ask for as journalists is we ask for a waiver. And we say we would add, because it's in public interest, we're asking for a waiver because we're media and we cite our credentials. Mine are pretty good, and we'll say that in the letter, Academy Award nominee, 3-time Emmy winner, DuPont Award winner, Overseas Press Club of America, blah, 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 right? And then and we'll say that, and we'll say this is why and then we're writing from the writer's cabin under a private thing that has 250,000 people on Facebook. If you look at both of our Facebook pages and another, whatever, 7,000 or 8,000 people on Substack, we just started that. And from there, they have to make a determination of whether it's worth giving it to us for free. Now we can also say, can you give this to us in digital form? You can cut some of the fees out that way because it doesn't cost a lot to throw shit on a hard drive. So you kind of have to know how to work the system. And so we're asking very specific things about the law. And we're saying, if you can't get it to in 20 days and FOIA is behind, we're going to assume that you've said no. And we're going to go to court, and you're going to have to send somebody to court and have an attorney face our attorney and tell us why this information needs to be withheld. And the judge is going to go, well, I don't know. It seems like he's giving you a chance. You didn't meet the law requirement. I'm more inclined to think you should release it now. Right. So those kinds of things happen. And there, by the way, there's a lot of journalists out there doing that work right now. They have to get this information, but we're looking for holes in that reporting. So, and we're actually using a computer assisted, AI to help us find those holes
and cross-reference against what FOIAs have already been submitted.
Yeah.
So we don't duplicate work.
Can you imagine that? We're cross-referencing FOIAs that have been submitted so that we don't duplicate that. He just said that. Anyways, other questions, a couple more.
Separate girls like in New York and on the island, or did the same group travel back and forth?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not deep diving enough, but I guarantee you somebody like Julie Brown would know that.
I do believe there were, we don't have exactly, we have their testimony, their interviews, but there were certainly people that were in both places.
Here's a great question from Carrie Lewis. The victims have told the names of the perpetrators to representatives of Congress. They've said in the past that they would expose their names on the House floor. Why haven't they done this? Threats? Why also put more pressure on them? This is a very important question. And I would say that there's a number of factors. One is that these young ladies don't have they're not teenagers anymore. Some of them are in their 40s, right? And some of them don't have the wherewithal, the monetary wherewithal to deal with somebody suing them. And so they're very careful about what they say. Some of them are bound by non-disclosure agreements that if they actually come forward, they're going to have to go in court and fight for their right to tell their stories. Some of them are relying on Congress to break this story. So they've gone to them, and you saw like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance, who said, I'm going to read them on the House floor if nobody releases them. And then she's now out of Congress and no longer is protected by the law that allows her to say whatever the fuck she wants there.
I think I've heard, I forget who was it, but one of them in the Oversight Committee, I believe, talking about how they would prefer that this information came from the government, from the official sources, these ridiculously redacted files, the ones that have no business being redacted, versus them entering something into the congressional record under the, so the immunity clause. They can be protected legally against things that they enter into the congressional record. But I've heard an argument, at least, that would suggest that perhaps it's better that the government be the ones to release the full archive, the full information, so there's no question about motivations or any other mess.
Yeah, and that's true. And by the way, Congress is a part of the government. So whatever they find, they should be releasing. And, the government does control the files. And by that, Rod meant the DOJ and federal government who owns these files. But as they get stuff, they continue to try to leak stuff out that is authorized to be released because it's part of the law that says they have to release it. There's just no way around that. And there's actually a carve out in the laws that I think you read me the other day. It was stunning. I didn't even know. There's executive order in the file. Is that right? We saw that?
It was something to that effect, that if something was classified via executive order and they could show that in fact it was subject to that, you can look up the text of the EFTA. We'll bring that up pretty quickly.
And that makes it very difficult because Donald Trump could executive order all sorts of shit. So you have to go to court and say the president had no authorization because it did not fall under any of the reasons that he shouldn't be able to redact it. So you're going to be fighting the president on these things, right? Not just the DOJ. You're going to be fighting his own lawyers in court.
Yeah, one of those. So the attorney general may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that four items that we described, and then contain information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy, and are in fact properly classified pursuant to such executive order.
And that's a fucking very broad authorization you've just given them in that law. You know, when it says national defense or foreign policy, that means any foreign government person that was on Epstein Island who they don't want to embarrass, or they want to keep from being embarrassed or go to jail, could be protected. And why did they put that in there? Well, think about it. Prince Andrew, right? They're trying to protect people like that. And they're trying to protect the former president of Norway, right? Who they've arrested because of his involvement there. And so, former ambassador from Great Britain to the United States, they fired from his job. So that's who that's written for. And those are the people that actually fucking need to be exposed. And so we can't allow that to be an overarching reason for them to classify or to keep stuff out of the files that shouldn't be, because an executive order from the president just signed off on it. So these are the fights you're looking at. These are the fights you're looking at. By the way, the president always doesn't win on these things. If you look at, historically, there's been a lot of documents that have come out that the president has signed as executive orders in the past. And you go to court and you win these battles and they have to release them. So it's happened. And you can't be dissuaded by this bullshit. As a guy who's fought the government over many documents, over many years of my career, I can tell you they're going to always fucking say no. And it doesn't matter. That's why the law's there. And that's why we have judges. And that's why you have to support proper judicial reform, so that they're not just saying, oh, they're a bad judge, they're appointed by Clinton or something, so we're not going to agree with the rulings. Judges are there for a reason. They're a check and balance on the government, one of three branches. And when these people say we can't have something, we go to the judges and we ask them. And we ask them to rule on these things so we can say, fuck you, we can have it now. So you just have to have people and all you guys have to have the same perspective on this. It's a process. You're just going to chip away at the process as much as you possibly can until you get what you want. A couple more questions and we're going to go. Two more.
All right. So this one is kind of obscure. Someone was asking if there were victims from an island nearby, which apparently is occupied by the 12 tribes. If you don't know who that is, it's like a very Christian group, kind of like Rainbow Family. They recruit young people at Grateful Dead and Fish concerts, stuff like that. There would be no birth certificates. Is there anything?
I've not heard anything to that effect.
News to
I
me.
can look into it though.
It's news to me, but if you guys have more evidence and support for that, just send it on to
Give us
us. You can send us to either our emails and from the writer's cabinet, or from what's your page again on Substack?
Document 0 with Rye Howard Stone, or epstein-data.com has a feedback form.
Yeah, you can send all that stuff to us, and don't blast us. Please. I can't tell you. Please. I get about several hundred people a day who write me personal messages with and it's great. Some of them I read them all. Actually, I get to them. But some of them are just clips of stuff off the internet that are conspiracy theories, or just things that you would have seen 100 times that day. And have you seen this? I'm like, fuck. Yes, I've seen it. Please, if you have some evidence that doesn't look like it just came off a meme, fine. But if I spend 1 minute a day looking at 500 messages, you can imagine how I don't get any work done. But yeah, if you have stuff like this, it's very interesting that we'll look into. Please do. And this is an interactive process. That's why I spend a lot more time actually answering folks on my paid subscriptions, to be honest with you, because they're paying for feedback to me as best they possibly can. And so I'm trying to do my best to adhere to those guys. And I'm not trying to oversell things, but when you get like 3,000 or 4,000 comments a day, sometimes you have to draw a line at how you're going to sort through that stuff. And honestly, I sort through them, and Holly sorts through them, and Rye sorts through them, and Holly sends me a note saying, answer this person. I'm like, okay. So just please be a little bit aware of that. I'm not trying to ignore you if I don't get to it. Some of them I don't even open yet. Like I've got a dozen or so from the last couple hours that I haven't even opened and looked at. And I don't mean to disappoint you guys, but that's just sometimes the amount of hours I have in a day. I don't have staff here. It's like, you're looking at it. Like these are the staff, like this is it. And George and Dixie, the dogs, that's it. That's our staff. So anyways, one more.
Do you know how long a non-disclosure agreement stays in effect, and are there any circumstances that would invalidate it?
I'm not a lawyer, but I would say, I imagine non-disclosure agreements, you could probably write that in the contract of non-disclosure. You know, it might expire a period of time and they might release you from it a certain period of time. And sometimes non-disclosure agreements can be overridden because the public's interest is more important to get that out. And you might not be able to sue somebody over a non-disclosure. And sometimes also non-disclosures can be, you can say, look, somebody signed a non-disclosure. Well, this is a criminal investigation over murder. You know, murder, you sign a non-disclosure agreement. That doesn't matter. It's wiped out. We're not going to, you can't use them in that capacity. So there are a lot of different rules around it.
It looks like you can have infinite NDAs. I mean, this is the Google search results, but yeah, the expiry does look like.
Would the NDA be signed by like someone getting a settlement?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I had a settlement with somebody over an accident I had one time, and it was a pretty large amount of money actually. And they said, but you need to sign an NDA that you won't report on the settlement or the terms or what happened. And I wouldn't sign it. I said, fuck you all. It was an accident. A guy hit me in a semi truck on a motorcycle and it was his fault. He knew it. He came across my lane and hit me and I'm still here. And they were like, you need to sign an NDA because he was a commercial truck driver. And I'm like, I'm not signing an NDA because he was a dickhead at the scene. He got out and told the cops these fucking motorcycle people all cause us problems. And he actually came across my lane into my lane and hit me head on in a Peterbilt truck. And I was just cruising along, luckily at only 35 miles an hour, but I was in the hospital for ages with collapsed lungs and broken ribs on. And then this guy was like, these fucking motorcycle, he used the C word about me. And I was like, and I heard this stuff and it was like, and people were there like, no, you came across, you hit him because you're on your phone trying to look at your map. And so I wouldn't sign it out of principle. I was like, no, I'm not signing it. Fuck him. I'll go to court and get $3 million from him in 3 years, And so I didn't sign it and they paid me out. So sometimes you don't have to sign them. You push back on these things, people just, you don't always have to sign things that people put in front of you, Anyways. Okay, guys, I hope you guys got something out of this. If you got something out of it, please leave a comment. It helps us steer the direction of what we're trying to do. If you'll notice, like our podcasts are long, so like over an hour. So I might make a reel and it might get 100,000 or 50,000 or 300,000 or sometimes 1 million views. And that happens. But when we do these podcasts, we get like, 25,000 people, or 15,000 people because they're longer. And maybe the format is such that it doesn't go in the reels where a lot of people see them because it's a wide format like this. So when you guys write comments, we get better feedback. And we also would love it if you guys would share this with people so that our word gets out so that we can keep doing what we're doing. It's a little disheartening sometimes when I do a reel that's not as nearly as news significant. I get 100,000 views, but then this is a really important story and we get 25,000. So share it with as many people as you can. It really helps us grow. And, go to our Substacks and if you can get a paid subscription there, please do that because it helps us do what we're doing. I guarantee you we're going to be spending a lot of money with these FOIAs coming up. So we're going to have to put some of that aside. And this also, by the way, this is the last day you're going to see Rye here. He's heading back tomorrow with Bear, his dog, little tiny dog, and they're going to drive back to Connecticut 10 hours. Just so you guys know, he drove down here just for this, just so we could work on this together. And we're going to continue to be working back and forth on podcasts similar to this. He's just going to be in Connecticut and I'm going to be in the house. It kind of looks like we're in two different places now, but we're literally sitting right. Come on, Ryan. We're literally sitting right next to each other, and the light is different because they're two different cameras. Yeah,
You got to show off Georgie.
yeah. And we're gonna show off George's new haircut before you guys go. Okay. Where is he? Get that animal. You guys remember he looked kind of chubby because he looked kind of fat, like we've been fattening up over the Christmas holidays or something. But instead, Holly gave him a haircut. Come here, buddy.
Come on.
Come here. Come here.
Come here. I'm scared.
Come on. Yeah, it's a good boy. Look at this haircut. Get up here. There he is. Look, there he is. Georgie, look here. He is always looking at. There you go. Georgie got a haircut. So he needs the kibbles. Come on, people. All right. So and there's Dixie with her corn cob. Where is she? Dixie with her corn cob. And if you take the corn cob, it makes her happy. Anyways, guys, thanks very much. You guys have a great Saturday. And love you guys for following us. And see how his hair's cut now. This was when he had long hair. Woof woof bark bark. Go to our merchandise thing and get a shirt. Take care. And from the writer's cabin and from Rye and Holly and everybody and the two dogs, have a wonderful Saturday evening. We'll come back with more in a couple days.